Hello and welcome to Joline Knits A Lot. This is my show about knitting and crafting and the things I get up to here in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. How are you doing? The days are definitely getting longer here, which is really nice. In the middle of winter, the sun comes up close to 9 in the morning and it sets around 4 in the afternoon. And so it's really nice when the days start to get longer and we get more sunshine. And I'm really appreciating it. How are you doing? What have you been up to? I finished my Paul Klee sweater. This is a sweater that I made using a whole bunch of scrap yarns. All of these are just little bits of sport weight yarns that I had lying around. And the main color, or the main yarn, is a beautiful yarn called Ulisse. It's by Dererum Natura. I'm so saying that wrong. And the color is Salt and Pepper. Although they say it in French much better than I would. I will link all of that information in the show notes below, and here are some pictures of me in my finished sweater. I have to say it's quite delightful. The main yarn is soft, but it is rustic. So if you're sensitive to sort of anything that prickles, you may find this a little bit prickly. I don't. I find it actually, it's fine for me. Next to skin, I have a t-shirt under this sweater, but my arms are not itchy, not necessarily. And I find the colder the weather, the less wool itches, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm really happy with how it turned out and I'm loving the colors, and I would absolutely recommend this sweater if you are interested in color work. I would caution you though, if you're a beginner color work, these little rectangles can be a little bit tricky because if you pull your yarns too tight, and because they are so regular, there may be a tendency to pucker. So just think really relaxing thoughts and really stretch your knitting out so that the strands in the back are all really relaxed, and so you don't have any problems with puckering in your color work. When I was coming up with the color, I guess, ideas for this sweater, I just pulled out all the yarns I had and started putting them together in like colors. So you can see I have down here are some sort of cooler tones mixed with some darker tones. I have some like kind of greeny yellows, orangey yellows. This is sort of more like browns and oranges, and then the pinks up top. But I tried to mix them with a lighter tone and a darker tone, and then similar tones together, and then to create sort of a color story, I don't know, if you will. Basically what I did, and I do this with a lot of patterns that I'm interested in knitting, is I'll just go through all of the projects that other people have made, thank you other knitters, and I'll just click like on the ones that appeal to me. And it may not be that I love everything about that sweater, but maybe there's something about it that I like. It could be like for these ones, I was looking at colors. So I just clicked on ones I liked. They didn't have to have anything in common. I just clicked on the ones I liked. And then I went back and looked at all the ones that I liked, which you can do in Ravelry. And I sort of gave some thought to what was similar. And the ones that think that were similar had this sort of color, like not really a rainbow, but this sort of idea of colors shifting from one to another, and not having two different colors in each row, because that to me was going to make it very difficult. Although I think you could absolutely do it that way, it would look very much more like patchwork, which I think would be also beautiful. But for me, approaching it in the colors that I had, this sort of worked well for me. So picking two colors that are related, so here it's like two pinks or two pinky purples, here definitely is two grays, and I just sort of put those together and then put those pairs in order that was pleasing to my eye. And this is what I ended up with. I am a big fan of mixing cool tones and warm tones, so I love this section, especially with the warm and the cool sort of meet. But I'm really happy with how it turned out. It's a super comfortable sweater to wear. I love the ease. I knit this with about 4 inches of positive ease in the body, and it fits really comfortably over top of a t-shirt, which is exactly what I was looking for. I have a few more finished things that I'd like to share with you. let's start with these. These are my, sorry about that. These are my winter bird feeder socks. And I think they turned out really fun. This is a yarn by Knitspin Farms. And each of these stripes is a different bird that you might see in winter, particularly where this dyer lives. And the gray is like a cool winter sky. So this is a blue jay, which we definitely have around here. This is a black cap chickadee, which we have all year round, always. And then some other birds that I'm fairly confident we don't have, but a very fun pair of socks off my needles. And there's nothing super interesting about these, except I will just note that I have been using the butterfly heel by Kay Jones, and I really like the way it turns out. I enjoy knitting it, and I enjoy the way it fits. So I will probably just keep doing that. I really like the way that this heel works into your sock if you know that where you want to put your heel. So I can just stop my striping pattern, insert the heel, and keep going, and then the stripes aren't interrupted. So this is a great heel to use if you know where you want to knit your heel. But sometimes I'm still going to be doing an afterthought heel. I think mostly because on occasion, I just want to knit. I want to knit a straight tube. I don't want to have to stop and do a heel. So I'll keep using an afterthought heel for those types of socks. In fact, I have a pair of socks on the needles that I'll talk a little bit about heels and my thoughts on heels for those ones. So those are just some plain vanilla socks with a butterfly heel by K.F. Jones of the Bakery Bears. And I use some Knitspin Farms yarns. I have one other sort of batch of projects off my needles. These went very quickly. I've spoken to you, I think, before about a local organization to me called Craft for Yeg, which is an amazing organization run by a very few very determined individuals that harness the power of crafters in their community to collect donations 4 times a year for people in need in our community. And those people in need range from brand new babies, premature babies, all the way up to senior citizens. So at any stage of life, and including pets. So this organization is serving so many people in our community, and they put out a call maybe a couple weeks ago, just letting us crafters know what sorts of things are in demand and what sorts of things they don't really need at this time. So one of the things that they needed are hats and mittens for kids. And so I picked up some Lion brand Woolies Thick and Quick, which is my go-to yarn for things like mittens and hats because it is machine washable. It's quite warm. I have a pair of mitts myself I made out of this very same yarn, and they're great. I love them. And so I have picked up some yarn to make some hats for people in my community. The first one I made was this hat, and this Thick and Quick comes in these really fun striping colors now too. So this one I think is called Astroland. I cast on 56 stitches and I knit until it was about 7.5 inches, and then I did a bunch of decreases. This hat was the first one I did, and it is a little big. Like, it fits me, which I think is fine. There are kids out there with some big melons, and certainly there are going to be kids and or teenagers who need hats and want to stay warm. So this was my first one, but I kind of thought, well, it was a bit big. I'm going to size down for the next one. So the next one I made was this one. It's called Hudson's Bay, and I think that the stripes are based on the Hudson's Bay blankets, which are very, very sort of ubiquitous with Canada. Like, they're everywhere. If you know the Bay, which is a department store in Canada that was opened in, I'm going to stick the year here, and I'm not kidding. That's how old this institution is. This is still a major department store in Canada. They serve online and are like a staple in many malls. It's sort of Canada's version of Macy's. So this is based on the Hudson's Bay blanket. And for this hat, I cast on 48 stitches. I knit 7.25 inches, and then I did my decreases. And I think that this is a better hat. It fits me, but I think it would fit kids And I sort of use myself as a guide because I think there's going to be a lot of people knitting for smaller kids, but kids grow and they still need to stay warm. So here's my second hat. That was 48 stitches, and I thought that was good, so I did another one just like that. This color is Succulent, and I knit this hat exactly like the second hat, so 48 stitches. I knit to 7 1/4 inches, and then I just did a whole bunch of decreases. And so these hats were so quick. I used 8mm needles, which I think is a size 11 if you are not in the millimeter system. And so these 3 hats I knit up over the course of a couple days. Like, they were so quick. Now I still have some yarn left over, and I bought 2 balls of each of these colors. And so my plan is to knit a matching pair of mittens. I will use my Super Mitten pattern from Weekend Knitting, which is an older book by Melanie Fallick, but oh my goodness, this is the mitt pattern. For me, I love it. I love it for myself, and I love it for giving, for donating. And I'll use the same yarn, but I'll use 6.5mm needles to knit up some pairs of mittens in the size that fits me, which they're a little bit snug on me, but I figure if they're snug on me, they'll fit hands that are my size and a little bit smaller, which I think is pretty good. And then I'm going to see how much of these colors I have left. I'm hoping I will have enough out of the yarn that I have to make either another pair of mitts, so 2 pairs of mitts, or if not another pair of mitts, then maybe like an earwormer. But I'd like to use up all the yarns that I have for donating. And the next collection is going to be in March sometime. So I'm trying to get a few things done so that I have a pile to donate in March. Now I have one more finished object, one piece of mending, and I have a couple of things that are like almost done. So this finished object is quite tiny. Let me just show you right here. Ooh, there she is. This is Luna Livington, and she is the little character associated with the murder mystery cross-stitch pictures that I have been working on. So you can see the first room is right here. I just tucked it there before I find a place on my walls. I thought I should have more of them done before I get hanging them on the walls. But the first one is called Luna's Living Room, and that was the first cross-stitch picture I did. This is a murder mystery series by Diana Waters, who is a cross-stitch artist from Ontario, which is in Canada. She came up with this fabulous idea of 5 pictures, each depicting a room and a house, and each picture incorporates one piece of a mystery. So there are 5 rooms, and there are a who, a what, a where, a when, and a why. And then each room has one of the roommates who basically decorated that room. So this is my first room. It's Luna's living room, and this is Luna. This is a tiny little 3-inch, now I'm seeing that my hanger's on a little bit crooked. It's a 3-inch cross stitch. It was very quick to work up, and she's very sweet. I love her glasses. Here, let's do that so you can zoom in on her a little bit better. This was a very fun and quick cross stitch. I wasn't sure how long it would take me given how many colors, because there are 12 colors. So that's quite a few, but I think it turned out really sweet. And my plan is to do each room and then its little corresponding roommate. And I will hang those up on this wall over here. I'll show you when it's all done. But anyway, I'm gonna go room by room, and I think I'll just keep them in my little bookcase there behind glass so they stay safe, but I can still see them. And the plan is to just keep plugging away on them. So now that I've finished Luna, I will probably start the next room, which is Davy's Den, which is done on like a deep green background. So I'm going to be using a new purchase to help me with that, because as I age, I'm finding that it is a little bit harder for me to see some things, and bright light certainly helps. So I got one of those neck lights. I bought it off Amazon. It's nothing fancy, but I'm going to give that a try to see if that helps me be able to see what I'm doing a little bit better with my cross stitch. So that's Luna, and she is done. It's very sweet and so easy to do. So that was fun. And those are sort of the crafty things that I have finished. I did, I think, tell you a little while ago about a request, a commissioned work for my brother-in-law. Now he has this hat that is his favorite hat, and he wanted me to do some mending on it. So I took some black wool. He told me it was okay if it was a contrasting color because then it would give it more character. So I started doing a little bit of repairs here and there where there were some stitches that were coming loose. Here's another spot. And then there was a very big hole, which I attempted to fix up with some, this isn't darning. I actually used a technique I found online where you pick up, you sort of weave back and forth some yarn and then use that yarn to, oh, I've got a little tail here that it's going to bother me unless I cut it off. Do you ever get like that? I'm going to snip it and hopefully that will be better. There. So I wove some yarns back, or some thread back and forth, and then I picked up the stitches and I laddered them up like knit stitches. So it's hard to tell because I used a very dark color, but those are in fact sort of knit stitches on top of the green hole. The thing that made this a little bit tricky for me to fix, and it's fixed, like there's no hole there, it's not going anywhere. The thing that made this a very difficult project to fix is that it is in fact like doubled up. So this is the inside and this is the outside. Now, had this been a single layer of knitting, I think it would have been a little bit easier because I would have been able to go in and out. But this is all like enclosed. I couldn't get in the inside because it's enclosed, right? So I wasn't able to have a backside of the work to work off of, and I didn't want to have a lot of ends. So I was trying to be careful about not having too many ends. So my first attempt at doing some serious mending, I think it's okay. I showed him a picture of it and he was very happy to have his hat fixed without a hole in it. So that's good. And that will be going back to him just as soon as I can get it there. So that's my bit of mending for this week. Now I have been working on a shift cowl. And this was a really interesting project for me to work on for a number of reasons. I had purchased these yarns at the Spin Cycle store when I was in Bellingham, Washington this fall with a friend. So it was fun to be able to work up some yarn that I purchased not very long ago. And to see them like get used up, I've really been enjoying that. This Ulisse I bought on that same trip. I bought this at the Mercery on Bainbridge Island. And then this yarn, which is my Spin Cycle, I purchased at the Spin Cycle shop. So that was really exciting to be using up yarns that I had purchased recently. Now, the other thing that was really interesting to me as I knit this is I have knit this pattern in the past. I have used different yarns to make it. I have certainly used Spin Cycle to make it, but my gauge or my tension is a lot looser this time. I used up more of the yarn and it's just a lot lighter fabric than the first time I made it. I haven't had the chance to seam it together. So this is what the cowl looks like before you seam it. You start on one corner and you follow the instructions by increasing on both sides, and then you increase only on one side. And then you start to do some decreases on one side, and then you do a two color I-cord bind off. And that's what mine looks like. I thought it was going to be a little bit too tight, but after I blocked it, it's okay, and it's still got some give. And now all I have to do is seam it up. I have worked in all the ends, I just haven't clipped them. And this is what it's going to look like when I sew it up. But this one definitely has got a lot more drape, and I think is just generally bigger than the first time I knit this pattern, which was years ago. So it's interesting to me to see how my tension and my gauge has changed over the years. I still wear my original shifty. It is one of those patterns that you just reach for because it's so easy to wear. And the first one I made was in blues and some greens. So it's super easy for me to wear. I think that this one too will go with a lot of things in my wardrobe. And I sort of did some planning to get this really deep color up near my face when it's finished. But I just thought it was really super interesting to see how my gauge has changed. And what I'm going to do is measure my gauge on my original one and measure the gauge on this one. And I'm going to put it on the screen now so that we can both just marvel at how we change as crafters. It's not a good thing. It's not a bad thing. It just is. There's no way we could stay the same and be completely consistent all the time. So it's interesting to me how I changed without really even realizing it. But knitting this pattern again after a number of years has really shown me how I've changed, which is interesting. The last thing I have on my needles is a pair of socks. This is my February socks, and again, this is some Targhee Sport Weight. It is by Knitspin Farm, and I cannot remember the name of the yarn, but I'm so happy at how it's knitting up because it's making these really, really pretty rainbow stripes. I'm using 2.75 millimeter needles, and this time I have decided that what I'm going to do is knit the sock from the cast on here to the toe, and then I'm going to do an afterthought heel. The reason I'm doing an afterthought heel on this one is because I don't have a contrasting color yarn for this particular self-striping yarn, and it's sport weight, and I don't have any solid color sport weights in my stash. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to knit all in stripes, and then when I go to do my heel, I will pick up the stitches as I would with any afterthought heel. And if you're interested, I do have a video that includes how I do an afterthought heel. It's kind of tucked into my video on how I turn a sock tube into a pair of socks. But if you're interested, I will include a link on that below so that if you are interested in making some afterthought heels, that's how I do it. There's more than one way to do it. And in fact, I would encourage you to look up lots of different ways because some ways work better for some people and other techniques work better for other knitters. But I will be picking up some stitches and then working a heel, which will create sort of a bit of that bullseye heel that I've talked about before, which isn't a special technique. It just means that the stripes will spin around the sock much like a bullseye. So once you cast off the heel, that's the smallest stripe, and then they kind of grow from there. I'll show you that when I have a finished pair of socks. But for right now, I'm just plugging away on these and knitting them from the cuff down. I am using 56 stitches on 2.75 millimeter needles. And I think I'm just going to keep knitting until I'm tired of knitting and then do a toe, because I do have a lot of yarn and I do think I'd like to use up as much as I can. And that's all I have on my needles today. I'm really actually delighted with some of the things that I've managed to finish. It was nice to do a little cross-stitch picture. And in fact, those little portraits are kind of nice cleansers, palette cleansers between the bigger pictures like this one and the smaller little portraits. So that was fun. It was fun to try my hand at doing some mending. I mean, certainly I could use some work on my mending, but that was really a fun project and it sort of stretched my abilities, I think, a little bit, which was nice. I'm happy to get some nice hats off my needles. They were so quick, but satisfying to knit, and I'm looking forward to putting those onto my donate pile. And I'm also looking forward to seaming up this little bad boy and having a new little accessory in my life. It'll be perfect for Valentine's Day, I think. And I'm looking forward to finishing it off and having something new to wear. So it's been actually quite productive last couple of weeks. How have you been doing? What have you been up to these last couple of weeks? Are you making progress on your projects? Are you trying something new, like mending? Ooh, I could use some practice on my mending. Are you stretching your skills in another way, like trying cross-stitch or crochet? Oh, it's been fun, actually, to work on some little projects that were different than the things I normally knit. But now that I have finished or nearly finished, my shift shawl, and I'm wearing my beautiful Paul Klee sweater. It's time for me to cast on a new sweater, and this is one that I have been looking forward to having in my wardrobe. Some knits I knit because they're really interesting. Like this one, to me, it was really interesting to play with the color. And some knits I knit because I want the finished project. And this one is in that category. My next project will be an Eva cardigan, just looks like this. And I'm going to be using some beige yarn. So yes, that's right, I'm making a beige cardigan. And I'm not necessarily looking forward to the knitting of it because I think it will be a little bit of a plain knit, which is fine. But I am looking forward to having a beige cardigan that I can introduce into my wardrobe. I hope in the next couple of weeks you find time to do the things you like to do. I know I plan on knitting a lot. I'll see you soon.